Maseches Tamid, Perek Gimel. And we're up to Pasuk Zayin. We learned yesterday that you couldn't do Shchitas HaKorban. The Korban Tom in the morning could not be brought until the doors of the Heichal. In our Midos number 3. Let me get my real Midos number 3. Ulam Heichal. These doors of the Heichal had to be opened before you can bring the Korban Tamid. So what has happened, and I know we've done a lot of things in Maseches Tamid, not to worry the exact order it was done in, because at some point, either when we finish the Masechta or a little before we finish the Masechta, we're going to learn a perek in Rambam, and the Rambam puts everything in order. This happened, then this happened, and this happened, and this happened. We'll have the whole order reviewed for us of Maseches Tamid. We had the first lottery for the Trumas Hadeshim. The top of the Mizbeach has been cleaned, new logs have been put on there. There's been a second lottery in the Lishkas Hagozis. 13 Kohanim won the lottery. The first Kohen is the one who had finger 82 or 76, whatever number the supervisor of the lottery picked, and he became the Shochei. He was the one who would shech the Korban Tamid Shel Shacha and the Korban Tamid Shel Bein Abayim. Whatever lottery you won for the morning Korban Tamid, you were also the winner for the afternoon Korban Tamid. There was not a separate lottery for the afternoon Korban Tamid. The winner is the Shochei. The person to his right is the Zorek. He will sprinkle the blood. We're now dealing with the next two winners. The Medashing Mizbeach HaPnimi. Somebody needs to go into the Heichal, a Kohen. He's our third winner. The first winner of the 13 of the second lottery is the Shochei. The second winner is the Zorek. The third one is the Kohen that's going to go into the Heichal, and he's going to clean off the top of the small Mizbeach from yesterday's Ketores in preparation of today's Ketores. The fourth winner is Mi Medashen HaMenorah, who is going to clean out the menorah from the oils and wicks yesterday. And the reason why the first winner is the Mizbeach and the second winner is the menorah, that's because, we talked about this, Ma'avir and Ala Mitzvahs. You can't just walk by and pass over a mitzvah. When you enter the Heichel, the first thing you came to would be the Mizbeach. So you can't pass that by and say, I'll come back to you later and clean it. You need to do that first. The menorah was further in the Heichel, and that would be done next by a different Kohen. So these two Kohanim, one is going to clean the Mizbeach HaKtores, one is going to clean the menorah. The menorah is on the southern wall of the Heichel. The Shulchan with the Lechem Hapanim is on the northern wall of the Heichel. We don't deal with the Lechem Hapanim every day. We only deal with the Lechem Hapanim inside the Heichel on Shabbos when the breads were switched. The week-old bread with the fresh, quote-unquote, bread. Of course, we mentioned that all the bread was fresh. Even the bread that was 9 days old was still smoking as if it just came out of the oven. So every day, a Kohen had to enter the Heichel, clean off the Mizbeach HaKtores, and clean out the menorah. How did you get in to the Heichel? The Heichel had two large doors here, like every door in the Beis HaMikdash. They were 10 amos wide, 20 amos high, except for one opening. The opening of the Ulam was double that size, 20 wide, 40 high. But remember, the opening of the Ulam doesn't have a door. It only has curtains, but the opening is 20 wide, 40 high. All other openings in the Harabayas and the Beis HaMikdash the exception of one, are 20 high, 10 wide. But here, there are doors. How did these two Kohanim that have to clean the Mizbeach and clean the menorah, how did they get in? Well, why don't they just open this door and go straight in? Because that's not the way you enter a palace. You don't just go into the front door of the palace and say, Mr. King, sir, I'm here. There's a dignified way to enter the palace. And for that purpose, there was a pishposh, little doors. There was a little door on the northern side, right here. There's a little door on the northern side, which means the right side. Everything is looking east to west. There's a little door on the northern side of the big Heichel door, and there's a little door on the southern side of the big Heichel door. Sent around the message to have available, as we had yesterday, Midos diagram 32 and 34. When we look at Midos diagram 34, at the bottom it says Ulam. That's the floor of the Ulam, that rectangular building. And you're inside the Ulam, standing on the Ulam floor, and in front of you, you're looking east to west. In front of you is the large door, or are the large doors, two doors of the Heichel. To the north, there's a little pishposh. To the south, there's a little pishposh. The Kohen, the two Kohanim that had to go into the Heichel to clean the Mizbeach HaKtores and to clean the menorah didn't just open the door and go straight in. They went through the little door, the northern pishposh. We're going to learn how they got into the Heichel and how they opened the big doors. But they didn't open the big doors. First, they went through the little door and got into the Heichel and then opened the big doors from inside. And that's what this mission is going to describe. And remember, we learned yesterday that there are two keys. There are two keys to this northern pishposh, this northern little door. One, the Kohen had to bend down and put his arm into the bottom of the door. There was an opening, and his arm would go so far into the door that his armpit would be almost inside the door, and there would be a lock on the inside that was one key. And the second key was a regular lock that he was able to stand up and open on the northern pishposh. Who carried those two keys? The Kohen, who was the winner to clean off the Mizbeach HaKetoris. So the Kohen who's going to clean off the Mizbeach HaKetoris is carrying three things. He's carrying two keys, plus the gold bowl we learned about yesterday that he was going to use to put the ash of the Mizbeach into. In V'hoshev es ha'avoda, the Mishnah is on page 15, Mishnah Zayin. Bolo lepishposh hatzfoni, the two Kohanim, the one that's going to clean the Ketores and the one that's going to clean the menorah, they came to that small door. We call it the northern little door, because it was on the northern side of the Heichel, northern side of the Azara. There were two little doors to the big door. The word Shar HaGodol is a term of art. Shar HaGodol means the doors to the Heichel. This door in Midos 34b. This is called the Shar HaGodol. And it has two pishposhim. Echad batzafon ve'echad bador. One was on the north, one was on the south. Shebador, and by the way, this is a Mishnah, as I mentioned, I think yesterday, we learned this entire Mishnah already in Midos, except in Masechta Midos, there are two opinions brought down to how the Kohanim entered the Heichel, and here the Mishnah only brings down one opinion. Shebadorom, the southern pishposh, right here, the southern one. Lo nichnas bo odam me'olam. No one ever entered there. But the word no one ever has an exception that we learned about in Maseches Tamid, which we will refresh our recollections about in a moment. Lo nichnas bo odam me'olam. This door, for the most part, remains shut at all times. For all of whom mafurish al yidei Yecheskel. Yecheskel, when he was prophesying about the building of the third Beis Hamikdash, remember we mentioned that the first Beis Hamikdash has been destroyed, the second hasn't even been built, and Yecheskel is prophesying about the third one. It's a little strange event, which means that the Jewish people, when they built the second Beis Hamikdash, basically knew that this Beis Hamikdash wasn't going to be forever, but that there would be a third one that would be the forever Beis Hamikdash. And it says in Yecheskel, Vayomer Eli Hashem, Hashem said to me, the Rebbeinu Shalom took Yecheskel and showed him through a vision of prophecy what the third Beis Hamikdash would look like. Hashar hazeh sogu yiyeh lo yipaseach. This entranceway, this gateway, which means we're talking about Chazal have a Kabbalah, we're talking about that southern pishpash next to the big door of the Heichel. Sogu yiyeh lo yipaseach. It shall be closed and not open. V'ish lo yovo bo. And no man shall go into it. Because that's where the Shekhinah is designated to come through, and therefore no man shall come in there. Now, to refresh our recollections briefly about this southern pishpash, it was opened on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. That's exception one. It was opened on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, for reasons that are described by Chazal. We may discuss it later in the Masechta. There was an opportunity on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. They opened that southern pishpash, which is supposed to be very, very holy because the Shekhinah is said to come through there. It gave the Jews an opportunity in the Beis Hamikdash to bow down on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh with that southern pishpash open. The other exception to that southern pishpash being always closed is, it says the Nasi, whatever the Nasi is, we'll talk about that in a moment, the Nasi, when he needs to eat from a korban, he will go inside this room. The southern pishpash will be open and he can eat inside that pishpash so that he can eat privately because he's the Nasi, he's the prince. Rashi in Sefer Yecheskel says that the Nasi is the Kohen Gadol. In other words, in the third Beis Hamikdash, when the Kohen Gadol has to eat from a korban, an offering, he can enter, they can open that southern pishpash, he can go in there and eat there privately without anyone watching him as he eats. It's a private eating room for the Kohen Gadol. Second shot is that it's talking about the Nasi, the prince, Melech HaMashiach. When Melech HaMashiach is going to eat from a korban, he's not going to eat in the general area of the Azorah. He is going to go into that private area of the Pishpash Dora. Okay, so that's the Pishpash Dora, the southern little door next to the Heichal door. Never open, it's for the Shekhinah, exception Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, so that Jews can bow to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Exception also the Nasi, who can eat his korban in there. Rashi says the Nasi is the Kohen Gadol. Other Mefarshim say Nasi is Melech HaMashiach Meher B'Yameinu. He'll be able to enter that southern pishpash. Other than that, we don't deal with the southern pishpash. We're only dealing with the northern pishpash. So what happened? The two Kohanim, the one who's going to clean the Mizbeach HaTorah and the one who's going to clean the menorah, they're going to go in to this pishpash. They open this pishpash. The one who was going to clean the Mizbeach has the two keys. Now he's opened the door. Now that he's opened the door, how did he get into the Heichel? So if you remember, there was a very, very long conversation about ta'im, corridors or tunnels around the heichal. In other words, this is the heichal. But then there were different walls put around the heichal. A moment. One moment, please. Okay. We had an extensive discussion about how the heichal was built. If we go back to Midos diagram number 3, this is the heichal. This is the room itself. You enter the doors of the heichal. You have the mizbeach. You have the menorah against the southern wall, and you have the shulchan against the northern wall. You have 2 curtains. Behind the 2 curtains, you have the aron. This is the inside of the heichal. The heichal then had walls surrounding it. And we didn't use this picture because it's a different shita. We used this picture when we learned about the heichal. 34C, 34D. The heichal, the inner part of the heichal, this is the room that has the menorah, the shulchan, the mizbeach in it, is surrounded by walls which are actually tunnels. So if we look at 34C, do not concentrate now on 34D. 34D is Rebbe Yehuda Shita. His Shita is the one I referenced before as being quoted in Masechta Midos, but not quoted in Masechta Tamid. So let's ignore right now 34D. 34C. The 2 Kohanim, or maybe even just one Kohen, the Kohen who had the keys, he entered the pishpash. The pishpash is right here, where you see the dots. He opened this door with the 2 keys. He went into the tunnel. He turned, and there were openings in the walls. And now he's in the heichal. Now he's in the heichal. He's going to go towards the doors. He's now walking west to east. This is west, this is east. He is now in the heichal. He opened the pishpash, walked into the tunnel, made a turn through the walls that had an opening in it. He's now in the heichal. He needs to open these doors. The first doors he's going to get to are the inner doors. Remember, we said there are 2 sets of doors, 2 on the inner side of the heichal and 2 on the outer side of the heichal. He's going to come, and the first doors he's going to get to obviously are the inner doors. He's going to pull open the door. There were different ways they locked the door. He's going to open the locks. No keys. He's going to open the locks. There was a briach there. He's going to open it up. And where are these 2 doors going to open? How big was the opening of the heichal? It was 20 high and 10 wide. So this opening right here is 10. If you follow me, you're going to see an amazing thing in the V'hashev es Avoda, which we learned in Midos, and now we're going to see it in beautiful, colorful detail. How wide was this opening to the heichal? 10 amos wide. The door was 20 amos high, 10 amos wide. And each of these doors is 5 amos wide. There are 4 doors, 2 inner doors, 2 outer doors. The entire open space is 10. Each door there is half of the open space. It's 5. He takes these doors and he opens it towards the inside of the heichal. He's not opening it into the doorway. He's opening it into the heichal. How wide was this opening here? The back door, the back side of the heichal wall. Let me get my little pen here. He's going to open these 2 doors into the heichal. One door is going to flip here. The other door is going to flip here. How wide was this? This was 5. So when he opens the door, this wall is completely covered. When he opens this door, this wall is completely covered. Remember, the inside of the heichal is 20 wide. Without the corridors to each side, it's 20 wide. 20 wide. The wall here is 5. The door is 5. The door is 5. And the wall again is 5. So that gives you a width of 20. The whole width of the heichal is 20. At this point, it's 5 wall, 5 door, 5 door, 5 wall. So when you flip open this door into the heichal, the door will now cover this wall. When you flip open this door into the heichal, it will cover this wall. Why is that important? Remember, we learned in Maseches Tamid that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chasam amonim shel Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want Jews to spend money for things that are not necessary. Of course, the Beis HaMikdash is the palace of God, and ein aniyus b'makom ashiras. We don't show poverty in a place where it's God's palace. So, for example, we just learned several days ago that when they gave water to drink to the sheep that was going to be brought as the carbon Tamid, they brought the sheep his water in a gold bowl. It's the palace of God. You don't bring it in some cheap pitcher. Even the animal is going to be fed water in a gold bowl. It's God's palace. It's done with dignity. But at the same time, there's a concept of HaKadosh Baruch Hu chasam amonim shel Yisrael. What you need to do, you need to do, and we don't want you overspending even in the Beis HaMikdash. Therefore, the whole inner wall of the heichal is covered with gold. Sheets of gold are put on the wall of the heichal, except step 1. There's no gold over here, and there's no gold over here. This part of the heichal wall, this is all gold. This is all gold. But this little piece here, which is 5 amos wide, and this little piece here that's 5 amos wide, did not get gold. Why? Because the only time the avoda would be done is when the doors were open. And since the door is going to open against these 2 5 amos spaces, you're not going to see the gold there anyway. The doors are going to cover up these 2 areas. So there's no reason to put gold plating, gold sheets here or here. Because when you open the door, that area is going to be covered. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu chasam amonim shel Yisrael. The same thing is true here. In this little corridor of the heichal, you're going to open these 2 outer doors into this corridor. The length of this corridor is 6 amos. The doors will put 1 amma deep into the corridor. So from the beginning of this wall right here until the outer doors begin is 1 amma of space. Each door is 5 amos. The opening is 10. 2 doors, each door is 5. You're going to open this door here and open this door here. Again, there's no reason to cover the inside wall of the corridor with gold, because when you open the doors are going to cover up the back, this wall of the corridor. No need to spend money to cover up those walls, when you're not going to see them anyways. You're going to cover them up with doors. So the Heichel is covered with gold, the walls, except here, where the inner doors will cover, and here, where the outer doors will cover. Let's take a look at our Maseches Havodah. Page 101, picture 110. You have the magnificent gold door, the large one of the Heichel, 20 amos high, 10 amos wide. And you can see to its right, there's the Pishpash, the northern Pishpash. The Kohen, after he opened the two locks, he's going to enter the Pishpash. And what's he going to do when he enters the Pishpash? He's now in a tunnel. Midos 34C. He goes through the tunnel, walks through the openings in the wall. He's in the Heichel, and he now approaches the inner doors. Next page in your Maseches Havodah. Just absolutely beautiful. You see the wall here? That's the inside wall we've been just describing. It's not covered with gold. The Kohen is now going, he's inside the Heichel. He's going to open each door, and what will each door do? It will cover this wall of stone. So you don't need to cover this wall of stone with gold, because the doors, when they're open, are going to cover that wall. We now go to picture 113. Picture 113 is showing you the outer doors have now been opened, so you no longer see the stone on the inside of the Heichel, because the inside doors are covering it up. Now the Kohen is going to open the inside doors. And when he opens the inside doors, he's going to cover that corridor wall with the doors. So you don't need gold here in the inside of the Heichel, because when you open the doors are going to cover that part of the wall. And when you open the outer doors, it's going to cover the corridor wall. So if we go back to take a look at 32. The outer doors of the Heichel are opening into the corridor, and they are going to cover this wall, the corridor wall. The inner doors of the Heichel are going to open into the Heichel, and they're going to cover this part of the Heichel wall. Therefore, the corridor wall didn't need gold, because the outer doors of the Heichel would cover it up. And this wall of the Heichel, right and left side, didn't need gold, because the inner doors, when they're opened, would cover it up. So the Mishnah now continues and says, he took the two keys, he opened the northern Pishpash, Nichnas Lata, he came into the tunnel, corridor minata el Heichel, from the Ta he went into the Heichel. We saw that on the diagrams. Until he gets to the doors of the Heichel, which means he's at the inner two doors. He came to the large doors of the Heichel. He removed all there was a briach, like a board that you would put, you see these in the old times, they would put like two brackets on the doors and then drop a board or drop a 2x4 on the brackets, and then you couldn't open the door. So he would remove the briach or the chains. Upsacho, he would open the inner doors of the Heichel. He now walks towards the east, and he now approaches the outer doors of the Heichel. And he opens those two doors, and now the two doors, two sets of doors of the Heichal are open. And now, with the two doors of the Heichal open, the first winner of lottery 2, who is supposed to shech the carbon Tamid, he can shech the carbon Tamid. You can't shech the carbon Tamid until the doors of the Heichal are open. He just opened the doors of the Heichal. There's not going to be a shritas carbon Tamid yet either. Because as we learned, in the Seder Hayom, first the Kohen, who is supposed to clean off the Ketores inside the Heichal, is going to clean off that Mizbeach. The Kohen, who's supposed to clean out the menorah from yesterday's oil and wicks, is going to clean out the menorah. Only then will the Kohen, who won prize 1 of lottery 2, will he shech the carbon. So, the Kohen who won the privilege of cleaning the inner Mizbeach HaKtoros, he has 2 keys, and he walks to the Pishpash Hatzafon, opens the door, goes into the Teh, goes into the Heichal, opens the inner 2 doors, opens the outer 2 doors. The doors of the Heichal are open. He then goes and cleans off the Mizbeach HaKtoros. The other Kohen who needs to clean the menorah cleans the menorah. When those 2 jobs are done, back in the Azara, in the Beis HaMitbachayim that we learned about yesterday, the Shofet can now shech the carbon Tamid. The Mishnah now continues, L'hoya Shofet HaShofet. The person who won the second lottery to do the Shrita, he would not be permitted to do the Shrita until he hears that noise. These are huge doors. They're 10 amos wide. Each of them is 5, but together they're 10, and they're 20 amos high. When you open those kind of doors, they make noise. And that noise was heard in the Azara, and that told the people, the Kohanim in the Azara, that the doors are now open. They couldn't immediately shech the carbon Tamid because, as I said, the Kohen in the Azara who's going to shech the carbon had to give a couple of minutes for the Kohanim in the Heichal to first clean the Mizbeach HaKtoros, clean the menorah, and only then would he shech the carbon. And now we have a beautiful Mishnah. It's a famous Mishnah. I'll just read it quickly, and then we'll see the significance about it tomorrow. There were 10 different things that were done in the Beis HaMikdash that had ramifications all the way to Yericho. How far is Yericho from the Beis HaMikdash? The Gemara tells us in Yuma that Yericho was 10 parsaos from Yerushalayim. Give or take, I'm not dealing with seconds, but give or take timing. A parsa is 4 mil. A mil is 2,000 amos. It takes approximately 18 minutes to walk a mil. A parsa has 4 milin in it, which means a parsa has 8,000 amos in it. If it takes 18 minutes to walk 1 mil, it takes 72 minutes to walk 4 mil. And a parsa is 4 milin. So it takes 72 minutes approximately for a human being, an average human being, to walk a parsa. An hour and 12 minutes to walk at a normal pace. It's an hour and 12 minutes to walk the distance of a parsa. The distance between the Beis HaMikdash and Yericho, the Gemara says, is the equivalent of 10 parsos. It would take a human being walking at a normal pace, about 12 hours give or take, to walk at a normal pace from Yerushalayim to get to Yericho. So we're talking about a nice distance. For us today, we know where Yerushalayim is and where Yericho is, and we drive it, etc. Take a bus. It's a distance. And now the Mishnah is going to tell us that there were certain things done in the Beis HaMikdash that were heard in Yericho. Now, why is it important that these things be heard in Yericho? We'll discuss that tomorrow. Just let's go through the 10 things. The Mishnah now says We just said that when they opened the two large doors of the Heichel, the inner doors, the outer doors, 20 amos high, 10 amos wide, it made noise. Those doors made so much noise when you opened them that they heard the noise in Yericho. And they knew that the Heichel doors were being opened now. From Yericho, they were able to hear the Magrefa. We'll go into Magrefa a bit tomorrow. Magrefa was the type of musical instrument. They were able, remember there were musical instruments, the Beis Hamikdash Leviim are playing musical instruments as they're singing the Shir Shel Yom as the wine is being poured on the Mizbeach. When the Magrefa was being played, they heard in Yericho. Remember, we learned about Ben Katin. There was the Kiyar used to be left out. Go back to Midos diagram 3. On the southern side of the ramp to the Mizbeach, there's a kiyar where the Kohen washes his hands and feet before he does avoda. And at night, there would be leftover water in that kiyar. That water couldn't be used the next day. It would be nifsal balina. We've discussed that. It slept. It remained overnight unused. You can't use it. But the water became, quote unquote, water of Kedusha. It went into the kiyar. Ben Katan didn't like this process where water that was in the kiyar got spilled out because it couldn't be used for anything. So he created a bar, a pit, which was really a mikveh, right next to the kiyar. He created a pulley system, and the pulley system was able to lift up the kiyar towards evening, before evening, and lower it into the bar. The bar water connected with the kiyar, and therefore it was immersed in water, and it did not become nifsal balina. When this pulley was pulled up in the morning, remember we learned about the first winner of the first lottery, and that was even before dawn. He was the one that was going to take Trumas Hadesh. He was going to take some ash off the top of the Mizbeach. He had to wash his hands and his feet before Trumas Hadesh. Now it's before dawn. So the kiyar is immersed in the pit with water. So this Kohen who was going to do Trumas Hadeshin before dawn had to wash his hands and his feet, but the kiyar is in the bar. So he had to lift up the kiyar with the pulley system, and that pulley system made noise. So the Mishnah says, in Yericho, the people heard that pulley system lifting up the kiyar. These are all miracles, by the way. The fact that they heard this in Yericho, these are all miracles that they heard this in Yericho. Why was it important to hear it in Yericho? Why was it not important to hear it in Beersheba? We'll talk about that tomorrow. But these are 10 things, miracles that happened for Yericho. Called Gvini Cruz. We mentioned that there was one of the 15 supervisors in the Beis Hamikdash. His name was Gvini, and he was called Gvini Cruz. Gvini, the announcer. He's the one that arrived before dawn, and he made the announcement to the Kohanim who were sleeping in the Beis Hamikdash. Time for everybody to get up. We're going to start the avodah. And when he made that announcement, the voice was so loud. They heard this in Yericho. In Yericho, they were able to hear the flute being played in the Beis Hamikdash when the Levium was singing Shiva. In Yericho, they were able to hear the cymbals being banged together when the Levium was singing Shira. Mi Yericho hayu shomer kol hashir. In Yericho, they were able to hear the Levium singing the Shira. Mi Yericho hayu shomer kol hashayfa. In Yericho, they were able to hear the shofar blowing. This is not talking about Rosh Hashanah. This is talking about shofar blowing occurring in the Beis Hamikdash every day to introduce different parts of the avoda, which we learn about later in the Masechta. Every day there was no less than 21 tikiyas, and depending, it could be Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Yontif, there would be more. But on a given day, there were 24 shofar blasts in the Beis Hamikdash. Those shofar blasts were heard in Yericho. V'yesh omrim, some also say, af kol shel koyin gadol b'shor shumaskas Hashem Yom Kippurim. After we finished Masechta Midas, and before we began Masechta Tamid, we spent a week or so on the avodah of the koyin gadol in the Beis Hamikdash. We learned that the koyin gadol said Yud Kei Vav Kei in its special way 10 times the Beis Hamikdash, and when the Jews heard that in the Beis Hamikdash, they would bow down and say, Baruch Shem Kavai Machusa Loilam Boy. When the Kohen Gadol said the Yud Kei Vav Kei on Yom Kippur, they heard it in Yericho. Mi Yericho hoyu merichem reach pitum haktoiris. In Yericho, they were able to smell. Now we're not talking about hearing. They were able to smell the smell of the ketoris. Amr Rabbi Eliezer ben Diglai. Rabbi Eliezer ben Diglai says a story that actually he personally knows about. My father had goats on Har Michvar, and the goats would sneeze every day as the smell of the Ketores came from the Pitum Haktoris, we'll describe that tomorrow, came to this place called Har Michvar. So these are all miracles, special miracles for the city of Yericho, where they're able to hear everything almost going on in the Beis Hamikdash, the doors opening, the pulley system being pulled up, the different musical instruments, the Levium singing Shira, the shofar blasts every day in the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur saying Yud Kei Vav Kei. Special miracle for Yericho. Yericho, obviously, historically, it's the first city that the Jews ever conquered on their way. When they entered Eretz Yisrael, it was the first city that the Jews conquered. Har Michvar. It's the city that the Jews, first city the Jews conquered on the way to, in Eretz Yisrael. Miraculously, they blew shofar and the walls of Yericho fell. We'll discuss the Mishnah more in detail tomorrow, Bli Neder.